district's still considering that Hillfield Road. But they showed a great picture, and I asked them if they would pull it for me, and so I can share it with you. I haven't received it yet, but boy, you talk about all of the different intricate connections and different fibers and pipes and everything that goes into when you're digging and how much is intertwined. It was a great picture just to kind of really paint for us and understand how hard it is with, and it was mainly I wanted us to know because, I mean, even our own crews, when, you know, when we're opening up the road, just how hard it is. But also, and I don't know, I'll let Steve kind of talk about the manholes, but I guess these manholes that they're putting in are pretty state of the art, and I guess some of the best ones you can buy that are going in, and so the district's pretty excited about them anyway. That's really the only two. What's that?
State-of-the-art manholes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that smile on there. He is
excited about manholes.
I know. Like I said, those are some of the fun things.
Especially sewer manholes.
Yes.
Water, maybe, sewer,
Yeah.
not so much.
But anyway, I guess, you know, they're pretty nice. But other than that, I don't have a lot of reports on anything else because there really hasn't. I mean, legislative, I mean, all of us have been dealing with that. And I figured Tyson can cover the chamber one when we get there. So I'll turn the time over then to the council and you guys can give us your updates. Anybody want to go first?
Ramp Commission met this last week. They've got just under $2 million worth of grant applications that they're going through. They do it, so they just went through their first scoring. They met, they're gonna go through 2 more rounds of that before they come to us with their recommendations, so.
When does ramp
Next year.
die? Okay.
No, not die.
It'll be up.
It'll be up
I
for
know.
re-election.
I know what you meant.
Yeah.
It'll be up for election next year,
Yeah,
in 10 years.
How much do we have? They had some extra funds.
I'm curious, has there been additional outside entities this year? Or does it just kind of seem to be the same ones that we're pretty much dealing with?
Layton City's a pretty big one.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, the same characters.
When we wrote about ramp, we made sure that the city was included with everything.
Yeah, but I'll just say this, that the commissioners are wise. They're looking at this as if it, I mean,
They're on money.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And they do a great job in vetting the project, so
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to, I mean, when they come and present, they've gone through it.
That's one thing, I remember when they first put the ramp committee together, they weren't followers, they spoke up. And that was, I thought that was kind of cool, yeah.
Well, I love it, because like I said, it's our residents that are going through this whole process and vetting them and understanding just the details that need to go into it, like you say, Clint, so I'm glad we're working together on it and vetting it properly. Okay, anyone else?
Parks and Rec Commission met last week as well, thanks to the mayor and Bettina for coming. They're doing, the department is doing a, I don't know what you call it, it's basically a department review. They have a third-party group just going over how the department does business, all the different activities and groups that they interact with, and you know who the department serves, Parks and Recreation, and I don't know how long this process is going. It'll be another month or two, but we all did a survey about kind of prioritizing services from the department, the Parks and Rec department, and the effect they have on the community. It was done by the staff before the Parks and Rec Commission did it, and then I think they'll do, there's other aspects of this study, so just trying to make sure that the department is working efficiently and providing the services needed by the community. It was interesting.
hard to rank them,
Yeah.
because there's, you know, I mean, they're talking, you know, is it the Little League, is it the senior program, is it the comp leagues, is it the July 4th event, is it the special events, is it the monthly family events, you know, I mean, you had to kind of
Tough decisions.
prioritize all that, yeah. It was a good exercise to go through.
And legislative affairs, 2 more weeks, crossing fingers. Not a whole lot of bills that they talked about in legislative affairs that would affect cities, other than,
Small lot.
Steve, do you know about the blue stakes bill? Have you seen that at all?
Yeah.
I'm curious the city's opinion on that. They started about wanted to get rid of blue stakes, but now they're back.
Yeah, it kind of, I guess, centralized blue stakes into more of a state agency or something like that is my take on it. But the big change, I think, is the design staking that could happen. So an engineer now can call, or if they call blue stakes, they tell them, no, we don't blue stake for design, but now they would allow that, and the timelines and the extra work that that would take might be a pretty substantial impact if we get a lot of those, and then we don't have, or then we have a lot of normal construction excavation blue stakes at the same time. So I think they're working through some of that, but that would be, I think, the biggest impact to us, is to have to go blue stake for people who just want to know where the utilities are. Instead of us providing them a map, we would have to actually go mark the ground, so.
Are you in favor, worried about it?
When we want to do the same thing with the design blue stakes, and we can't get that done, so the engineer side of me says yes, but the city employee side of me says that's a lot of work for somebody who may or may not be building something in the future, and so I think we can find that balance that will be okay, but I would like to see some guardrails around that section to not allow people to constantly call in. If you had 5 people calling on the same property for blue stakes that we have to respond to just for design, that could be a lot of work that maybe we shouldn't have to respond.
It's Senate Bill 145, if anyone wants to do some reading. I think that's pretty much it for me.
You may have seen if you haven't, I'll send it, the Salt Lake Tribune article from Utopia responded to some of the negative advertising. It was a good piece, I'll send it to you guys, just kind of highlighted that it was kind of a bizarre negative campaign against Utopia for kind of strange reasons with about a bunch of outdated arguments. And it just mentioned that just last year that Utopia had secured 10,000 new subscribers, which pushed it to over 60,000 subscribers total. So it's like a sixth of the total in just the last year. And they had mentioned that they completely built out. And then with Santa Clara, Cedar Hill, Syracuse, and Bountiful City just unanimously voted over the summer to join Utopia. And that's with a signature gathering campaign inside Bountiful to try to stop it, kind of like how they did with the neighbor to the south. So good on Bountiful City Council for doing what I think is a choice that we made here a while ago. But it was just, it was good that you can kind of even have the media kind of see this as kind of a bizarre thing. So I just like that they kind of waited to kind of let those commercials kind of start playing down a little bit and then come out with the actual video story. So I thought it was good. I can send it to you if anyone's interested in it.
So Monday, there was a CTC community board meeting. I wasn't able to attend that because I was at the Capitol, but they did give some follow-up to the kickoff that I talked about last time. And what I thought was really nice is that we had 33 people RSVP and 39 people actually showed up. And so the turnout for that event was, I mean, we thought it was good. We actually found out it was good. When they met on Monday, they were able to kind of meet the work groups, get like schedules, start getting schedules, into play to start making some things happen. We do have a key leader meeting coming up. It'll be the first one of the year. That'll be on March 8th of this year, so you'll be getting information about that. I think it's from 10 to noon, but I'll double check that. It would be great if any of you could attend. They will have a virtual option as well, so we
It's
need
9.
is it 9 to 11?
11.
Okay, so I'll double check and make sure on that virtual option, but we've been trying to do both because we want to make sure that we can get the people who need to be there and who can be involved without excluding folks who can't physically be there. So that's happening, and then our board meeting in March, which will be on March 11th, that's the meeting where we're gonna actually get into the mapping, because we have the new data from the SHARP survey, and we have that specific to Layton, so we can see what's going on around those areas that roll up to Northridge and Layton, and be able to identify pockets of, activity maybe we don't want to see, and how to get programming around those areas. I know Chief Swanson was really influential with our work last time when we had that data, just kind of helping to identify other areas. That's actually kind of a really fun meeting, if any of you are interested in knowing, like, where are our kids hanging out? Like, what are they doing, and where are the areas that seem to be, areas of interest for them? So that will be on March 11th, and again, there's a virtual option for that if you're just interested in checking it out. But CTC is going well. I'll have some announcements out in the public meeting for the residents, for things that are taking place.
Good.
And then other than that, Clint and I have just been going to the LPC and both Clints, and there's a lot of things happening, but our staff is on top of it, and every time we ask them for help and support, they give us what we need to be able to talk to our legislators. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to our staff, because we need your help, and you help us all the time, so thank you for that. We'll be meeting on Tuesday because of the holiday, so we'll be up there again. I don't know if you wanted to get into anything specific, but one thing that I think is, it's been some good movement in the housing area. I mean, there's a lot of things that we don't really care for, but there was a bill, I can't remember the name of it, the number, it's at my phone, but there was a bill about modular housing, and I know that sounded really crazy, but the movement that was made in that area, and being able to bring homes in that are partially prepared already, and then allow cities to still have, inspection rights and things of that nature, those are kind of along the lines of what I think is more helpful when we talk about housing affordability for our residents, actually being able to afford something instead of just these smaller lots where developers could build a larger home. This seemed like an actual potential solution. So I was happy to hear about that, but there's still a lot of things that we're.
Is the smaller lot real kind of dying, Mike? That's,
Yeah,
So the one that was initially proposed is pretty
Yeah,
much
it's
dead. No one's talked about it for weeks.
That was the Representative Ward.
Ward bill.
yeah,
We had the bill that talks about the consequential or compensatory, what word is that?
Consequential.
Damages, that, we got an action alert from the league to everybody to tell the legislators, no, you don't want that. And we did the same thing here, and all 5 of the Layton reps voted for it, which was disappointing. There was some amendments made, which made it maybe a little more palatable, and so it got to the Senate, and the Senate committee's holding it, they have some questions about it, but there might be another amendment coming to make
Yeah.
it more narrow.
Yeah,
Scope?
the most recent amendment sounds like what it's going to be is not shall award consequential damages, but may award consequential damages if the judge finds that there's a knowing and intentional violation. Same with the daily thing, and then the attorney fees will be just a simple may, and that's the discretion of the judge, which is what it is right now.
That's, okay.
So the shall passed out of the House though?
It did, but it's not, I think it's close to being resolved at what I just described it as, and that's probably.
The-
where-
the-
High
amend-
majorities, I mean, are they gonna, let's say the Senate passes some sort of like compromise, are they gonna conference on that?
Good question. The amendment in the House that passed was you'd have to show that it was malicious intent.
Yeah, the knowing and intentional, which is,
That's better.
Which is
What-
better
It's
than
hard
the.
to-
yeah, what we were concerned about is the chilling effect it might have on cities where they have good faith arguments, where there's a legitimate
Yeah,
argument that can be made on both sides of the law. But with the shall, it
Shall,
was,
shall.
if you lose, you get paid consequential damages, and they were talking about all sorts of crazy numbers. One builder said it's, probably gonna be something like $15,000 a day. They said, they tried to use some example of somewhere in another state where there was some consequential damages awarded in like, the amount of like $10 million. So they were really throwing out some big numbers. So that's been removed. Well, it's a may, and it has to be under knowing and intentional, and that's a much more comfortable place for us, because I think if you're making good faith arguments, which is what we do anyway, you're pretty protected there.
My question was, and maybe you can help me understand that, it's with the Ombudsman's office, have they ever made a mistake?
Yes, they have.
It's like, it's assuming that they don't ever make mistakes, that if you get a ruling from them and then that's,
Yeah, it was basically making the ombudsman office the final arbiter, yeah.
did
But
the,
it's in a much better place now, at least that's what has kind of been agreed upon, and we'll see what happens on the floor.
did the bar get involved
No.
at all? I was just trying to think about what a judge with a shall.
It was kind of unprecedented.
Yeah, 'cause
and
that's
then
not what they
They've all
usually
moved, I think everybody's comfortable moving away from that.
All right, anything else? If not, we'll go ahead and move on then. Let's go ahead and do our Gordon Avenue and Highway 89 Town Center update. Chad's gonna kind of share with us some information so we're in the know.
Yeah, excited to. So, just to recap a little bit, if you remember back in November, we had our, well, I guess it was kind of our second public input opportunity. We had a big public input opportunity back in the springtime, you remember, up at the fire station? So this was the actual first public hearing. It was what we call a informational hearing. It was issues only hearing where people could come and talk. Well attended, you heard about that, some of you heard from some of the residents. We had, for that particular item, probably an hour and a half to a couple hours of comments and questions that were asked. So between that meeting, November 14th, and the planning commission meeting on January 30th, there was a special planning commission meeting. Staff went to work. We actually came up with answers to every single question that was asked at that meeting. We had, some of those answers were very brief, because they weren't big issues, but others were more involved. We also met with individual groups that came in. We made the offer, and we were true to that. If someone called us up and said, we'd like to come in and talk to you, we did. We had one group of, kind of a coalition of about, a dozen or so residents that came in, talked to us here in City Hall, had some concerns they expressed, and we did our best to address those where we could, and find some agreement to some of those issues. We had a lot of folks call us on the phone. We talked to each of them, listened to them. Sometimes we were in agreement with some of the things they said. Sometimes we let them know that we'd have to agree to disagree on some of these issues, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But had another meeting again on January 30th, answered all the questions that were given to us. I had another opportunity for people to give public comment. Dave, of course, was there. Councilman Thomas was there with us, and it was a pretty robust group again. But I wanted to start out today. I don't think you've seen the latest, and I thought it might be nice for you to at least see, before we talk about some of those issues, see the plan itself. So let me just roll through a couple of slides here. This is our latest rendering of the Gordon 89 Town Center plan. Now, as a reminder, this Town Center plan is a refinement of our general plan. So our general plan already designates this as a town center, but it says, that's just it. It says this is a town center. We have a town center core area that's identified. But now it's up to us to say, okay, what's the next steps? What are the zoning that we're going to adopt to implement this? So you can kind of see here, this is a grocery store. Now this is a 2-story model that our consultant originally recommended. I'll kind of show another option here in just a moment. This is pretty typical, but a really good town center design. So what it does is it provides, I like to call it like a, I don't know, like a living room, right? It provides enclosure. So when you go into that town center, you know that you've entered into a town center. It's not a typical just strip mall type shopping center. It actually has some design and some function. You can kind of see, and I'll get to some of these slides in just a minute, that there's amenity space. So this is a great big public amenity gathering space. The consultant has shown splash pads there. It could be a variety of things. There's also some public amenity space behind each of these buildings that I'll show you in just a moment. That's kind of the overview, you know, kind of the drone view of the area. You can see it's ringed by, I would call it medium density residential. None of the areas that we have in this plan are really high, with the exception of maybe these two buildings. These are two mixed use buildings that have some apartments on top and then commercial on the bottom. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail as we talk about some of the neighbors and citizens' comments. This just shows you another rendering of that same idea, a little bit different view. Both of those kind of looking from the southwest corner, looking to the northeast. You can see that grocery store there, those other buildings, just another way to look at that. You can see it's got that town center kind of form there with walkable and you know, big areas for pedestrians and that type of activity. This is the plan view of that same thing, and I wanted to point out over here on the lower right, one of the things that's really exciting about this, I've been through a lot of these kind of town center mixed-use development plans in my career, and almost always the reason these are being driven is because we have a developer that wants to have housing, right? That's the idea, and they say, well, we'll put some commercial in there because you want it, city, right? This is, what we've noted is this is kind of happening in the opposite way. We have tremendous interest from commercial users for this site. We've been meeting with desirable commercial users for this site, and they're very anxious to see what happens next. They're grocers, they're grocers that you are familiar with, that they are very excited about this, and I really believe that this will be a development pattern we don't often see, which will be that commercial will come in either before or at the same time as the residential components of this development, because there is such a demand and it's such a great site, and our market study shows that as well, that was done as part of this plan. So that's kind of the overview. You can see, I'll just go walk through really quickly. That's that town center core that I showed you just a minute ago. Ringing that, you've got these residential uses. Townhomes are what's shown here along the north, some townhomes here on the southwest side. This is another area that has the potential to be a variety of things. The market study actually said it could support a little bit of office if that was something that you know, folks wanted to build there. It also could be a little bit of a mixed-use area, some additional housing there if that office demand wasn't as we expected, but we think it would be. This is an area that's transitions, and I'll talk about why that's important here in just a minute. This is single family right along our single family in the west, and then this is more of these are kind of mansion homes, the bigger homes that they have the appearance of being a large home, but there are multiple units, either triplexes or attached single family or duplexes right in there. So that's kind of that overview. Now I wanted to talk about a couple of things that are important that changed from our November 14th to our January 30th meeting. We met with that group of residents. They had a couple of kind of big issues to them that we heard and that we took back to our consultant team, worked with them, and found ways that we could accommodate those things and still keep the integrity of this as a town center. So one of those was, in the original planning documents, it showed that this would be an area that would be transitioning from single family to a little bit higher density. So that's changed from what was an attached single family product, which is still single family, it just shares a common wall, but a little bit higher density, to a detached single family product. We found that was something that could still accommodate the number of units that we would hope to have to support a town center development. So we did make that change. Another significant change was we had 4-story buildings shown in this area. I think it was just that one right there. There was just one 4-story. Residents had concern about that, about the 4-story nature of that. Felt like that wasn't appropriate for this area. One of the things that's really important, now, I had a resident say, you came with the highest density you could just to negotiate back. We don't work that way. We've come with a plan that we felt like was trying to accomplish what the goals and visions of this general plan for this area were, but we also recognize that you may be able to accomplish those same things with a different design form. So as we talked we found that, you know, if we can get those, keep those at 3-story, which is what they asked us to do, we can still have that same design form, that same town center form, and not compromise that vision of that. So the reason for that higher unit, or that higher building before, was that you do need to have a minimum number of units, rooftops, residences, to support a walkable town center like this. So we were trying to provide an area that we felt like was fairly far away from existing surrounding residential, where we could have some additional density. However, we feel like we still can get to that unit count with the 3 stories, and feel like that can still be whole. One other notable change to this that's not so much a resident comment, but just as a result of, if we go to a 1-story design, which is what some of our grocery users have told us is probably more likely to happen in this area. The 2-story model was popular for a little while, but it's, some of these grocers are backing away from that. We want to make sure we can still park the site. So that area right here, which shows a building in this plan, would become potentially a place for a grocer, associated gas station, and some additional parking right there.
Good,
So-
because I know at the gas station it's critical.
It is, gas is important for this area as part of a town center. Most of the, well, the grocers we've talked to are all grocers that have that as part of their model, to have a gas station as part of the company use. This is the best location. If we had to lose a commercial building, this is the most far-flung commercial building off that interchange. It has the least visibility from Gordon, so it's the one that makes the most sense if we had to get rid of one. So that's why we've done that. Okay, so talked about some of the issues we were able to resolve with the neighbors. I want to just briefly touch on some of the issues we're still working on. And I'm going to start kind of at the big issue. And that big issue, which has been brought up by some residents that have lived in the area for a long time, quite a few residents that have only been there for a short time, is the why. And we understand, whenever you have something that's new, there's questions and concerns about, why are you doing this here? Why do we need this here? Can't we do something else here? Why does it need to be a town center? And that's been a real concern that's been expressed, and we understand that. At the last meeting, Weston Apollonia, our city planner, he'll be here for the public hearing that we're gonna hold on March 21st, when we bring this for your review and hopefully adoption at that point. But that would be, we went through this information. This is really important for people to understand that these town centers are the result of planning efforts that have gone on for a long time. There was the Envision Layton process, 14 to 16, followed up with our Layton Forward planning process. Lots and lots of scenario choosing by the public, lots and lots of things that were brought up, and the public were given a choice of what the development form of Layton was gonna be. These are just a few pictures. You might recognize some faces in there from this Envision Layton process. This is the map that came out of that Envision Layton process. This is what they call Vision 2050. This plan informed that next process, which is the Layton Forward. But you can see there's our town center that we identified even back as far as 2014, along with other town centers. Of course, this is not the only town center that we identify on our general plan. Next piece was the Layton Forward plan that came through, took those recommendations from the Envision Layton program, our process, and started to flesh that out a little more, started to see what does that actually look like. Went through a big process again. You're all aware you can get this information on laytonforward.org right now if you go to our website. I just think this is an interesting picture, first of all, because I want to make sure that Clint has actually seen Tim Watkins, because he's been asking a lot about Tim the last couple of days. This is Tim. He's a real guy. I've been mentioning Tim's name to Clint the last couple of days. So I brought this is a funny picture though. There it is. There's the Gordon 89 Town Center right there. That was being talked about back in that Layton Forward program, or process, excuse me. Here's the map that came out of that general plan map that you're very familiar with. Every time we talk about a zone change, we talk about this general plan map. There's our town center again. And there's the original conceptual idea for this. And you can see more dense than what we're talking about even now. We originally, had some ideas that this could maybe even handle some more density. As we continue to refine these plans though, we gotta make sure that at this stage, now we get to the point where, can we actually provide parking? Can we actually make this work from a functional standpoint? So what we found is that density, we can't park it. That's just the bottom line. So the densities have dropped significantly from what was originally envisioned for that town center plan, as a result of just the practical idea of needing to provide parking spaces for these units. So here's just really quick, this is the plan map that came out of that. I'm gonna just show you that really quick because it does inform some of the discussion we're gonna have here in just a second, but. And then this is crucial, critical. This is a map that was created by our market study folks. Lewis Young, they actually have a different name now, and I keep forgetting what it is, but Lewis Young Robertson is the one that did this. Yeah, they have a different name now that they go by, but, so this is a really, really important map when it comes to why a town center, and that is, you can see that, this is a mile radius from our town center. You can see other areas that are served, those little icons there in the middle are grocery stores that are serving those areas, and you can see there's a gap on our east side. One thing that this map doesn't show, but the market study points out, is that north for 5 miles and south for 5 miles, there are no services available along Highway 9. So your closest to the south is Farmington, your closest to the north is that South Weaver, Uinta area up there to the north. So 5 miles in either direction, there's no services available. So there is a big gap on that east side. And this is a really, really critical part about why a town center makes so much sense. The other thing about town centers though,
Is this the previous map, or is this the one that was done before, or this is the more recent one?
this one was just done as part of our, you've seen this because I showed it a couple weeks ago, but this is the most recent map. Yeah, this was just done as part of the market study. One other thing, I carry this card in my little briefcase that I carry my laptop in, and the reason for that is it's got a QR code that I can get to the Wasatch Choice plan really quick. But this is something that is, as you know, those of you that have been in those Wasatch Choice meetings with the Wasatch Front Regional Council, they're our metropolitan planning organization. This idea of town centers comes right out of that. This is something that is important not just to Layton City, but to our region. And town centers give us the ability to put density and services where they make the most sense. And what that does is it allows us to preserve other areas where it doesn't make sense. The Planning Commission just recently said in a meeting, you know what, that density doesn't make sense in this area of the city. And that was perfectly logical and a good decision by them, because what we want to do is say we have areas that are designated for those. This is one of those areas where it's important that we have density and services available to our residents, because look at that gap, right? So to that end, that's the discussion that we've been having with our planning commission, that we have with you, is that this town center concept is very important. These public meetings are extremely important as part of this process to refine the plan, to get to something that we can actually develop on the site. We're excited to have public participation. We don't ever, that doesn't ever bother us to have the public come out, we want them to. And we've been excited about the input. But I will say we've had a lot of support as well for this town center concept. And now I want to dig into a little bit more about some of the concerns that have come up subsequent to our meetings. And I said we answered all the questions from November 14th, we did, but then we had new questions that were asked at our January 30th meeting and subsequent to that. I want to go through a couple of those for you, just in case you're asked about some of these by residents. Maybe this would be a chance to talk through this a little bit. Yep, go ahead before I go on. Yep.
Say thank you for meeting with and listening and actually making changes. And that's a big deal. The two changes you just mentioned, the going from 4 floors to 3 and then the detached, that's significant. So that doesn't go unnoticed.
Thank you, thanks, yeah. I want to talk through a couple of things. A lot of times what we hear in these processes is we haven't been heard. And we want to make sure, we hear everything. We take it seriously, we take those comments seriously. Sometimes though, there are reasons why we don't implement those. And I want to talk about a few of those right now. One of the comments we got at the last meeting was, can't we get these multi-family mixed-use buildings to a different spot on the site? Could we flip those and put them down here? We took a look at that. We took a couple hours, one day and moved buildings around, and we kind of, played Legos with it a little bit. The issue that we have is that for any town center to be successful and have a commercial component, they need to have vision or views into that site so that people can see those commercial uses are there. If we put these big buildings right in that area, then we don't have that view corridor that those commercial folks will insist on. They really need to have that to make that a functional and a viable commercial center as well. So, we understand the idea, but that was one that we would respectfully say it doesn't make sense with the town center concept to do that. A couple other things, we've had questions about these road connections and concerns about, are we forcing these properties to do that? We're not. The important thing is that we don't want to do something with this plan that precludes people from logical development in the future. So these street connections are for properties to the north. And this one in particular, there's some concern because it goes through a church parking lot. There's nothing in our plan that says, don't think it's likely that people are gonna wrap their way all the way around here. They're more likely to go here if they need to get to Cherry Lane up there on the north. So that's one issue that came up in our last meeting. To us, that's just good planning. We know that these other properties will develop eventually. And we wanna make sure this is a walkable center. We don't wanna create a situation where we don't have connections to those properties, where someone living here would have to go all the way around here. It's not likely to happen, right? They're likely to get in their car, and we're trying to create walkability, where someone living in this area could walk to the center and shop and recreate and do all those things. So that's kind of issue number one. Yeah.
Yeah, question. So you mentioned that there were, numbers of housetops that you needed to make this work. You took a whole story off of that from 4 to 3. Did you replace that somewhere else on the map, or did you just take a whole story off and you didn't need those numbers?
Well, that's a good question. That actually is a good segue into the next point. One of the things that's been asked for is, could we potentially reduce the densities in this area? And so I wanted to show you, this is our kind of proposed density map for the general plan refinement. You can see there's kind of lower densities along the west. These are 12 to 15 units per acre here and here. This is a critical piece for us. We've been asked, could you just take this down to this same density here? But there is a spot where we have to say, no, we really need to have some of these units there to make sure we don't go below that. The market study indicates that within that mile radius, you need about 4,000 units, and this helps to, I'm not sure we get exactly there, but this helps that number immensely to have some more units there. One of the things, when we kind of just asked that follow-up question about what is it about that particular density that you have a concern with, the response was, well, it's traffic. We don't want the additional traffic. So we looked at the design that you just saw, and some of this design, it's gonna be there no matter what your density is. You have to have streets and access ways for these units no matter what your density is. So what we did was we took those streets out. We said, we know those have got to be there. It doesn't matter what number of units. You've got to have these are alley-fed front load or rear load units, excuse me. So those have to be there no matter what. So we took that out and we looked just at the numbers. And what it comes down to is that, the difference between what you can get there with, these lower densities at the maximum and kind of the higher density, you're really talking about a 12-unit difference. Now, we know every unit counts, right? We're not saying that doesn't, but when we look at townhomes, the traffic generated by them is about half of what a single-family home would generate. So in the PM peak time, that's what you're looking at for a difference in trips. So if the concern is trips, it's pretty negligible, really. And remember, a trip is an in and out, right? Or excuse me, an in and out is 2 trips, right? So that's what you're talking about, is that small of a difference in PM peak trips from those. Daily trips also, not a significant difference. When you look at those numbers too, keep in mind that the grocery store and the gas portion of this, grocery store and retail surrounding it, creates 15,000 daily trips. So when we talk about, these producing 200 or 300 trips that are, 350, 360, that's a pretty small part of this entire development. So I guess the reason I bring that up is that if traffic really is the concern, these units are not gonna create that much more impact, but the impact of not having enough units there will have a big impact on whether or not this town center can function the way we want it to. So these are just some more ways to say that same thing, but the point is that we do feel, and as staff, we wanna make sure people are feeling heard and that we're hearing the concerns, but we also wanna make sure our recommendation to you is based on good planning principles and trying to make this a viable center. So this is another one where we probably, we're still looking at it, but we're looking at still maintaining this recommendation because there's other important design factors that are impacted by the number of units there. So that may come up to you, people may mention that to you, that's the reason why.
Chad, I have a question, if you go back to the, yeah, this one.
Yeah.
So a couple of questions on the apartments, and you've got the 3-story max. Is that 3 stories of units, or is that still main level business and then levels 2 and 3 are units?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
So main level commercial, two levels of units on both.
Is that just an option for,
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so that's an option for, if a developer came in and said, hey, we actually can support whatever retail there, yeah, sure, that could be something they could do. We do think that, like we said, the units are gonna be critical to making this work as a town center. So we're gonna be, if they say we wanna do something else there, we're gonna still want that town center form. We don't wanna have just single-story strip mall type buildings. It's gonna need to be something that maintains that form.
So then my other question, sorry about that, my other question, the residents that wanted to know if that could be moved, or that were adamant about that being moved, did they allude to why? Was it because they didn't want it back up against their neighborhood? Was that the main reason, or did they give you a reason?
You know, I don't know, I think during the meetings, we heard a lot about, view, a lot about that kind of an issue, which I wanna go over with you in just a second, but I don't know that we had a firm, other than just moving it further away from kind of existing neighborhoods, right? And I think, you know, we have a pretty good buffer there. Maybe this is a good time to talk about view. I'm gonna actually go down this real quick.
View is one of the biggest.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. We understand, obviously, you know, we don't necessarily preserve views as part of the land use code or land use regulations, but I think it is worth noting a couple of things about that. One thing, this is, one of our planners put this together just to kind of illustrate what that means. So if you have a building right here, a 2-story building, you're gonna be looking, you know, if you're standing in the backyard of an existing single-family residence, you're gonna be looking up and over the top of those buildings. That's just how that, you know, if you're looking and you have a 2-story building, a 2-story single-family home right behind you, you're gonna see that 2-story single-family home, not the buildings behind. Now, there is a little bit of a grade difference there. We tried to carry that through, but you can see you're always hitting another building before you get through to that. Now, when we've shown some of these to our residents up there, there's kind of been a little bit of grumbling and a little bit of pushback on that. I wanted to just show you, this is an example, real-life example, which is about the same distance. So you're all familiar with Michael's. This is kind of over towards those Woodbury buildings to the west of Michael's, looking back towards Michael's. As you know, there's a 4-story building right behind Michael's. You can't see them, right? And that's the whole point of that, is when you have intervening buildings, you just can't see that building. Here it is. That's what that building looks like. So it's a large building. The issue there, and the point that's trying to be made is, as you're looking from that, and this again is pretty close to that same distance from those existing single family to these buildings, the intervening single family homes or 2-story townhomes are going to keep you from seeing those buildings in the background. So in terms of views, of course, there will be an impact because you'll have a single family home. In this picture, you'd have a single family home right here as well, right, that would block that view. But views to the mountains are still gonna be there. So again, that's an issue that we've looked at. We're sensitive to it, we understand, but we just, based on our experience and based on, here you go, this is what happens when you look, when you have that big of distance between those units, you don't see those units that you think you would.
When you showed some other pictures of the view, with, the only thing that I could see that the view was stopping was about where the trail met, the shoreline, whatever they call it, on the mountain. But
Yeah.
everything above that you could see.
Yeah, and it kind of
And
depends
so
on where
really,
you're
you're
at.
only,
Yep.
you're only missing the part that, where they're building stuff.
So this is the streetscape, and this, of course, if you're standing in the gap, this is a gap created by the street. If you're standing behind this house, you're gonna see that house behind you. But if you're standing in the gap, you will see those buildings back there. But again, based on, you know, the buildings in the foreground, you're about that, as far as the view goes, you're about that same height as you go back. And that's with a little bit of an increase in height as you go to the east, so there is a little grade difference. So, anyway, that's something that we definitely understand the concern, but we feel like, first of all, view is not necessarily a right that's a property right that someone gets as they buy a property. Someone else has the right to build on properties adjacent to them if they have those property rights themselves. But we wanted to show that you're really still gonna be able to see those mountains just fine, so.
Hey, Chad, can you speak a little bit about the green space in this area? I know, because
Yeah, it's come
typically
up.
when we, have multi-dwelling units, we gotta have X amount of green space, and I guess, are you
I walked
counting the
through-
commons area, it's all that green space then?
Some, but there's also some dedicated green space. So this is some of that kind of plaza space that's enclosed by the town center. This is that area that we talked about. Again, our consultant shows a splash pad. This has not been decided yet. This is something that residents thought would be a cool thing up there, but we're gonna have to work with whatever land use entitlement process we go through to decide with the property owner, which is UDOT, what exactly those amenities that are gonna be part of the development plan would be. That they would then sell to a developer as part of a sale of the property. But you can see some of those areas, it's again a town center type feel, it's a little bit different than just, open lawn. But that being said, if you go to the south, you can kind of see it at the back of this picture, but I'll go to that plan view again. We've got a big swath of green space right there at the bottom. Here we go. So this, of course, is our detention basin that was built as part of the Highway 89. There's a little meandering stream that was required for mitigation. So the idea is to create some nice green space around that area. There's a trails plan, I think that's it, that shows how we connect all these through multi-use paths. One of the suggestions that actually came from UDOT was, you gotta see if there's a way to get a below street crossing right here at Gordon and about this area.
Amen.
And we think that's a good idea. They kind of filled up as they did the construction, they filled this south side up a little bit more than we would have liked to make that happen, but the north side works really well. It's actually below grade right there. So we'd have to figure that out, but yeah, that came from the UDOT planner, so that'd be a good way to get some connectivity. So that's part of what our plan shows. And it shows all this trail and pedestrian connectivity through the site to try to provide that connection to that green space and some of these other amenities.
One of the things, I got a list of all the things that they asked for, some of them was whatever, but the biggest thing that I found was pedestrian. And they were worried a little bit about crossing 89 to get to the park. There's gonna be a park on the other side of 89, and they were wondering if that crossing could have fencing or something to protect the kids. Because right now it's just like a 3-rail thing that kids can climb on next to the street. And they were wondering if something could be put up, for protection. Because if they're gonna go to the park, they gotta cross 89.
Yeah, there will be some, like I said, interior kind of park space or amenity space in here as well. The scale of this makes it look a little small, but it's bigger than what that, you can kind of see it on those photos that I showed. This is a fairly large area of park and recreation space. There is a park and a trailhead that's planned over on the other side of 89. Steve and I talked a little bit about that question about railings and things. Not ideal for a number of reasons to have that, and we've already got 10-foot wide.
Yeah, you got a 10-foot
So it's a wider sidewalk
walk
there.
yeah.
We would hope that folks that, appropriate age kids are using that, and if they're too small, that they'd have a parent with them as they cross that, so they can be careful as they cross that highway, but we do feel like we've given them some extra room already. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add on that, Steve?
Yeah, it's pretty uncommon to be adding fencing like what they're requesting. That's kind of an old kind of mindset where, you build cages around things to try and
Right.
keep people from, the parapet walls on those bridges are fairly high to where it's a lot of work to even climb up on top.
To get up on
Yeah.
those.
Is that right here? I'm talking right here.
Yeah, going across, yeah. My only concern is, it's like when we used to build playgrounds. We didn't build playgrounds according to how safe they were. We had to look at the spots that weren't safe,
Yeah.
because kids, they don't play in the swings, they climb to the top and walk over and do stupid stuff. And the kids going over to that park
During baseball games.
are gonna be
It's a-
stupid kids, because that's the only kind of kids there are, And, so anyway, if there's something that's kind of protective there, then that's okay. I don't have a problem with that, and I know that was a big thing. They even talked about moving the whole didn't they? Moving the underground thing over farther up.
Yeah, we wouldn't
Where the
recommend that.
people were.
I think that came up before they realized that there was a signalized, some of them at least, realized there was a signalized crossing right there. And
Yeah,
our recommendation would be to keep it
and
on
that's
the
fine, I
east
think
side.
that gives them
Yeah.
opportunity to get across without having to go across the street. Yeah.
So you, I think you mentioned 4,000 units, is that right?
Within a mile, not part of the town center. Yeah, that includes single family that's already.
So how many units? It was like, I couldn't see them.
It's a range, because we, again, this is gonna go through an entitlement process. Eventually, it'll come back to you, but let me see if I can zoom in so I can see that. You can
What
see
does that radius include though? Because it's not just here, you're talking about
It was a
outside
mile,
of here.
wasn't
It was a 5-mile radius.
Well, no, the 4,000 is the number for the units you're looking at, but around 4,000. The range is within the town center, so that's your total housing units right there within the town center.
Can you go to the next one, the next slide?
The next slide,
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of ones hidden there, so is it this one that you're talking about?
I guess my question was just about the commercial, so is, when I envision a town center, I hope it's more than just a grocery store with a bunch of people who live around the grocery store. When I envisioned the town center, I envisioned that we're gonna have, there was a picture of like an ice cream shop
Yeah.
and all this stuff.
So this is
So
100%
on the
commercial
bottom.
right here.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that was my question, because
Yeah,
I think Councilman Roberts had a question a while back about mixed use, giving them that option on that bottom, and that very rarely do they actually take advantage of it from a business standpoint. And so my question was, we're not just having the grocery store, we're having lots more commercial than that.
Yeah.
And we're not giving them the option to just put housing in there on the main floor.
Right,
Right.
so these buildings here on the corner, and some of this may be designed to look like two-story to get that town center feel, but may function actually as a one-story, but that would be commercial space.
Okay.
And that's part of the studies. Some of this would be fast casual type eateries. If you've seen that, right there in North Salt Lake or Woods Cross, right there off 2600.
Yeah.
They've got
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
a new,
Okay.
and you've got some fast casual eateries that kind of wrap that center right there. That's what this would kind of have in mind. Mod Pizza, back from our previous life, that's
Mhm.
our hangouts, but anyway, that's that same
Yeah.
kind of thing.
That was my question, because I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't a choice, not for the full development, that there were actually gonna be businesses that
Yeah.
had more amenities and not just a grocery store.
One thing we got some pushback from our commercial folks has been drive-throughs. We think there's some ability to have maybe a couple, but what we don't wanna see is this become 100% drive-through area, you know? So that's been something that's been a little bit of a, back and forth kind of thing,
We need
but
a Shake Shack,
it's,
Shake Shack tonight, I'm telling you.
we
Get out.
want a Shake Shack. This might not be the spot for it, but we do want one.
but what about, right here, you show a, I don't know what to call it, I'll call it a sidewalk, but it's huge.
Yeah.
Is that just a rendering, or is that an actuality?
No, we had planned on having some wider sidewalks there that would allow for
Okay.
pedestrian activity, yeah, some plaza space almost, but
That accommodates for the Saturday farmer's market.
Yeah,
Sure.
well, that's what I mean.
whatever the case
Well,
may
or
be.
eateries during the summer
Yeah.
where they can bring tables out onto that area.
That's
I
right.
mean, is
There's
that
there's
part of
spaces in
the
the back for
plan?
that as well, yes.
Yeah, because I think that's what really makes a town center too, is when you
We have,
visually see those folks in
Yeah.
there.
in the appendices, we have some cross sections. This might be a little bit wider than what, I'm looking at that and thinking that rendered out a little bit wider than what that will be, but it'll be wide. It'll be a wide sidewalk area.
The other question I have, which comes up all the time, trees. Do you have a list of trees?
We will. We'll have trees as part of the entitlement process that they'll be required.
And what happens when the tree dies?
Have to replace it,
They,
yeah,
okay, so that's a requirement,
yeah. yeah.
okay. Because a lot of times,
They don't get
when
replaced.
we dump snow on the side of the sidewalk, it kills the tree. And so, but then there's something, because this looks gorgeous, but it's gonna look like hell if all the trees are dead.
Trees are important. In fact, one of the things that our consultant said is that what they really liked is the idea of having a significant number of trees in that parking lot to give it that orchard feel, that
Well,
it was an orchard for,
The one
Yeah.
thing that a lady mentioned, and I thought it was well worth saying, she said she's been to places that it doesn't look like a town center. She drives by and it's like, oh, you know, and we've all seen it
This is a.
in different areas of the world, where you drive by and you go, oh, there's, I can go in here to the grocery store, I didn't realize there was a grocery store there. So, you know, not like a huge Walmart, and that's all there is.
Right,
You know.
right.
You mentioned that front door effect. Does a lot of the trees actually defeat that purpose if they have a bunch of trees in the middle of the parking lot?
No, not necessarily. You're gonna
No.
put them in places where you're gonna have those visual
Still gonna have
corridors through
visual
there, so,
view.
yeah, you'll, and this, if it's one story, it'll probably be about that same height anyway, that grocery store will stick up, so there'll have some signage along there. One concern that we brought, this is not something I planned on talking about, but I will real quick. A legitimate concern that was brought up was you need to make sure that you have good rules about signage and, you know, what types of signs can go in there. We don't wanna turn this into a billboard area up there, so we get it. That'll be part of a development agreement that we put in there. You're gonna have another couple whacks of this, believe me, so you're gonna have a zone change and development agreement. That'll be part of any kind of a process that approves this for entitlements.
Good.
What's the approximate square footage on your designated grocery area? That you're
It's,
thinking
60.
60,000?
I think it's 60, if I remember right, yep.
That answers
It's
a lot of
mid-grocery,
questions.
yeah.
Is that good size?
Yeah, what's that
Yeah.
equivalent to?
It's a mid-sized grocery, that's like,
Big Maverick.
that's like a,
Big Maverick?
it's a
Super
big
Maverick?
Maverick.
Bucky's.
Yeah,
That's typical of
Buc-ee's,
neighborhood
yeah.
grocery stores.
Buc-ee's.
That's
Take
funny.
that. I'll take Buc-ee's over at Trader Joe's. any day. Give me those Buc-ee's nuggets, yes.
Yes, they make the bank too.
Sheets, you ever been to Pennsylvania, Sheets?
Yeah,
So you're gonna have another opportunity on the 21st, we'll bring the whole team, we'll give you the full meal deal, but any other questions before that, that's all I have for tonight.
What's the total acreage again?
It's 44, 40.
44 acres.
Yeah, 44 acres, I believe.
Maybe you mentioned this, but you said what the density is now of units, residential units. How did that change from the original, well, I don't know what the original is, but
the first
like
one.
the concept plan when we were doing Layton Forward,
Well,
and I don't know if there was a number then,
there
but
wasn't. That's part of this refinement. So you had areas that this whole big red area here was called town center core, and that's undefined, right? So you have to kind of look at these are much higher densities than what we have in the current plan, but you can see
Yeah.
lots of multifamily, this was you can see right there,
it
the
looks like more stories.
more stories. These are 3 and 4 story units for the most part. We've gone down to 2 and just 3 in just a couple places. Part of that, again, is a function of being able to park the development.
So this is kind of in the weeds, but something to consider going forward, because I know that it was also a concern of the residents, is obviously speed factor. You know,
Speed?
Yeah, the speed on Gordon in particular in that area.
Been a big concern. The
So I'm
good
just
news-
gonna throw that out there to make sure that's on the radar as
Yeah,
well.
the good news is that they're gonna have something they don't have there now, which is a number of signals. There'll be a signal at the entrance to this center, there's 2 signals planned further to the west. So we don't have them now, but when the warrants are met, there'll be signals that'll slow that traffic down.
Okay, alrighty. You guys good with this for now? Good update?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
we appreciate it.
We'll bring it back to you on the 21st.
Okay. Well. Okay, that was item number 3. We'll go on to item number 4, which is a closed door session. So I will entertain a motion to go into closed door. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in
Wait,
favor?
who was the first?
Tyson.
Oh, sorry.
Tyson, motion to close door. Stand while I can. You're up. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your patience once again. We're ready to get our Layton City Council meeting underway for February 15th of a start time of 7:16. As customary, we like to start our meetings with a pledge and a prayer, and we take turns on the council, and tonight it is Councilmember Clint Morris's opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor. I will offer an invocation, and after I'll invite all to stand and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father in heaven, we are grateful this evening for Thee and for this opportunity that we have to gather together in this great city. I'm grateful for all those who live here and for those that the employees that take care of each of us. We're grateful for our first responders and our public works employees and those that those acts of service that go unseen. We ask that Thou please bless us during this meeting with wisdom as we make decisions for the good members of this community. We're grateful, Father, for the freedoms that we enjoy, and again ask that Thou be here with us this evening, and we say these things and do in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
If you please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much, Councilmember Morris. Before we get started here on our action items, I also want to acknowledge our special guests that we have here upon the dais with us. We are definitely a council and mayor group that are all about our youth, knowing that they will be tomorrow's leaders. So before I say anything more, I'm actually going to, this is the first, but I think it'll be good. I'm going to have Matthew tell us a little bit about him and what the group is.
All right, so I am Matthew Jordan. I am 15, almost 16. Layton City Youth Council. It is very fun. We help a lot around the city with their activities, and it's a great service opportunity, and it is a great job to get involved with the community. Some of my interests are I love to act and sing. So yeah.
Very good. All right. I love it. So, like I said, this is an opportunity for these kids to see firsthand what it's like to actually sit up here and know that you're acting on behalf of the citizens of this great city of Layton. So, Matthew, we're glad you joined us. Okay, council, I'm going to turn the time back over to us. We do have one set of minutes that need to be adopted. If no one has any changes or corrections to it, I'll look for a motion.
I move that we adopt the minutes of Layton City Council work meeting, January 4th, 2024.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the work meeting minutes for January 4 of 2024. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to our municipal announcements at this time. So I'll turn the time over to the council for any reports from their committees or special interests that we have going on in the city.
Just really quick, Mayor, Parks and Recreation, it's about a month out, but they have an event planned, family night at the museum, always a fun night, a lot of activities. And what I learned last year, the kids get to run around and be loud in the museum, which is unique. So the theme this year will be mermaid scales and pirate tales. So a lot of different fun activities, council members that are able to usually join, and we have a good time. So plan on that. That'll be March 22nd from 6:30 to 8 p.m. So we'll have more info on that coming.
Okay, thank you.
At the library. At the library, sorry. Yeah, Layton branch of the Davis County Library.
Okay, go ahead.
I just have a couple of announcements on behalf of the Layton Communities That Care. So we have some classes that are starting up in March. There's a Circle of Security parenting class. And it will be held on Thursdays from March 14th through May 9th from 6 to 8 p.m. And also Strengthening Families will be on Mondays, starting March 18th, going through May 6th. Both of these will be held in Layton. For the first one, it'll be at North Davis Prep Academy. The other two are still to be determined, but these events are free, or excuse me, these classes are free. They also offer dinner and childcare for children ages 1 to 12, I believe. So go to the Davis Behavioral Health website and you can sign up. And if there's somebody that you know that could benefit from those, which is actually all of us, I encourage you to sign up.
Okay, very good. If there's no other announcements, we'll go ahead and move on to, we're going to actually skip several items here because we don't have any verbal petitions, excuse me. However, we do have an opportunity for citizens' comments. So if anyone here in the audience would like to address this council, you're more than welcome to. Please state your name. Yes, you can go over here and just state your name for the record. And usually the address, but
My name is Stacy Moyle, 820 Rosewood Lane in Layton. I've been noticing that there are a number of 5G towers going up in Layton, and I have some concerns about the health issues associated with those, like cancers and things that come from the EMFs. And I don't know if it was the Layton City Council or if it was the Davis County Commissioners who authorized the 5Gs to go up in the area, Layton and adjacent cities. But I'm wondering if there's any acceptance of liability for all of the health issues that can be coming from these towers and the people that live nearby them.
that's a tough one. And I know I forgot to mention that typically we don't engage in a dialogue, but you have a specific question here. And I know a lot of these, there was some litigation that came from the state on some of this.
Would you like me to answer that, or
Sure.
I can talk to her?
Sure.
Yeah, so I was actually pretty heavily involved in the legislation, the Utah state legislation when it was the state passed legislation to allow for 5G towers to be erected. The long and short of it is we fought very hard to allow cities to regulate to the fullest extent possible 5G towers. But unfortunately, federal law trumps what we're allowed to do, and we have very little say in what happens with 5G towers.
I figured you need me on this one. So what about federalism and the difference between state and federal? The federal government is in charge of all the states now. Doesn't the state have ability to make decisions? And do I need to bring that up with my state legislators to change that?
Yes, absolutely. I would say your state and federal legislators. And as far as federalism goes, the federal government has weighed in pretty heavily on this front. And they say that it's involved in interstate commerce, and the federal government has the ability to regulate interstate commerce. Whether you agree with that or not, that's where they're coming from. And I will tell you, I spent a great deal of time fighting for cities to be allowed to have a say and regulate to the most in a way that was appropriate for cities. We had some success, but not much.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, is there anyone else in the audience? If not, then I'll go ahead and bring the back to the council, and we'll go on to item number 5, which is our consent items. We do have 2 items on the agenda tonight, and these items we're able to enact upon in a single motion. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with our first item, which is a bid award, and Steve Jackson will present not only this one, but the next one.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor, Council. It's good to be with you tonight. As was mentioned, our first item is a bid award for the 23-24 street maintenance project. We have a annual contract for street maintenance. In the case of our contract, we have a allowance to extend that contract for multiple years if certain conditions are met. One of which is a price escalation clause that says that if prices change, the contractor has the right to ask for a change in those prices within reason. This year, the price escalation didn't meet the requirements of the contract, so we needed to rebid this project. So that is why this is before you for this time. I'll show a map here for the 2023-2024 street maintenance project, resolution
24-03. It basically authorizes us to enter into a contract with Staker Parsons Company to complete the project. Mostly reconstruction on this map. It's just some key. I know the map's a little hard to see there. Gentile Street from 2200 west to the city border with travel lanes. We want to mill and overlay those. 725 west up near Highway 193 is going to be a reconstruct Rainbow Drive from Fort Lane to Gordon. Also a reconstruct and paving project with a sidewalk project that's planned in conjunction with some funding we got from UDOT. 300 north between Fairfield and Adamswood. It's really hard to see on there, but that road has been in dire need of some help for a while. Also 3125 north and 1175 east, Peacefield Drive as well, Oak Lane, and then up in the 2700 north and 2600 east area are all the projects that are included in this project. So 4 bids were received with Staker Parsons Companies being the lowest responsible bidder in the amount of $1,834,337.75, with the engineer's estimate being $1,824,804. So staff recommends the council adopt resolution 24-03 awarding the bid to Staker Parsons Companies and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement necessary for the project. Is there any questions I can answer on that?
Council, any questions?
Just one, a little facetious, but maybe not. Who does the potholes?
Our public works department.
Do they
staff.
take care of that?
Yeah.
Okay, because
that will be.
It's that time of year.
It's that time of year, yes.
Yeah.
Depending on the winter weather,
Right.
it gets worse or better, but yes, it's that time of year. So if there are specific places, Councilman Thomas, we'll pass that on, please.
No problem.
Thank you.
Steve, yeah, just curious about that area on Gentile from 2200 to the border with Syracuse. Is that just a part of maintenance that we have a lot of traffic out there, or that stretch is needing to be replaced, or is it just part of a kind of a maintenance that's just general in nature?
A little bit of both. That is a heavily traveled road. It's one of our major roadways east-west in the city. There's some surface treatments on that road from years ago that have started to fail, and so we want to mill that off and fix that before it gets worse and makes the underlying pavement beneath worse and damaged.
So on that project, you said the word travel lanes. Does that mean we're only doing where the cars travel, or is it curb to curb?
Yeah, it will just be in the travel lanes. If there's areas outside of those that are failing, we will address those, but we found a lot of success in the just milling out the travel lane and then putting back new asphalt in that travel lane where the cars are not driving seems to be holding up.
So, last question, sorry.
Sure.
And then you need to go to Vegas or something with that engineer's bid estimate, pretty close on within like a couple $1,000. So
we really did a good job on this one.
Have we seen prices? I mean, we kind of always talk about prices for these construction projects. You even mentioned that escalation clause. Have we found ourselves, I mean, you obviously got it right on the dot on this one. Have you found ourselves that prices have calmed down, that we have a kind of understanding what we might be looking for budgetarily?
Yeah, I think we're in kind of that hope right now that we're seeing kind of I'll call it a flat line of the project escalation that we've been seeing. We estimate this saved us rebidding this $500,000. So really, really good for us. And
could have led with that.
Yeah, well,
that's a big one. You might want to say that one more time.
Yeah,
the purpose of this rebid saved you.
Yeah, it saved us $500,000, and that's important because that goes a long way to help with our roads and the funding that we have to stretch as far as we can. So
appreciate that.
Yeah, we do hope we do have a couple projects out for bid that'll be coming to you shortly, and we're hoping for the similar situation with the prices as well.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Okay, very good. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and move on then to item number 2, which is a grant award.
All right, thank you. Another really good one to talk about. Before you is Resolution 24-05, which is a grant acceptance award on behalf of Layton City from the State of Utah's Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. for projects S7 and S12 as identified in the City Water Master Plan. That is the trunk line that we've been talking about for several years down Gordon Avenue for our secondary water system. The project, if I'll pull up the map there in green and kind of the yellow color, is the project we've submitted for a grant funding opportunity through the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. We estimate the cost of the project completely as $14.6 million. We requested and the city was awarded $5 million in grant funding for this project. And the city has already allocated the remaining $9,600,000 in previous fiscal years to get this project going. So we're anticipating a start date fairly quickly. The first phase of this project is actually out to bid. Next Thursday is when we'll open that bid. So really great opportunity for us to be able to take advantage of this funding. The grant allows us to request 90% of the $5 million up front for the project. So it's really great that we can have the money in hand as we get going and not necessarily as a reimbursement. And then that remaining 10% we can pick up as we finish the project. So staff would recommend the council adopt resolution 24-05, authorizing the city manager to execute the documents pertaining to this grant award and any future documents that are required. There's a lot of reporting documentation that'll need to be submitted. But if there's any questions I can answer, I'd like to help out with that.
I'm sure our residents are probably going to want to know, are you going to start at the east end and work your way west?
Yeah. So right now we're working from the the Fort Lane Gordon area, working west to I-15. That'll be phase one. We do need to get across the freeway and also the railroad tracks and then further west. And so as we look at phase two, we may start from the west and work east once we figure out all of the permitting processes with the railroad and things. But right now it's Fort Lane to the west towards I-15.
Okay. Very good.
S8 there, that project there, is that, I guess it's not needed to supply the water needed for these other projects?
Not
right
immediately. Away. That is a connection that we do want to make because it connects all of the reservoirs together. It is in a future phase of our master plan to get that taken care of. But it wasn't included in this grant award because it's not the critical path to get the water out to those western connections.
Okay. When we provide or receive any grant funding, thank you again for going out there and getting money that is available to us. Are there any conditions or strings attached to the grant award?
On this one in particular, it's just a reporting back to the state that we're doing what we need to do, accounting practices that we generally do anyway. So there's not a lot of, I would call it strings like there is maybe with the federal money that we have to jump through. But.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
May I, Mayor? Steve, just thank you once again for, I echo Councilman Bloxham's sentiment about going after grant money. I understand that it's tax money, but it's helpful here in that this water master plan is really expensive. And when you can find grant money to help, that keeps water rates where they are, that helps the entire system. And so I just appreciate the hard work in doing it. It goes unnoticed, but we notice. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We've got great staff in our office taking care of these things.
Yeah, and I also have to actually give a compliment to the state for awarding us these funds. I know they get hit up by several different projects. So the fact that we were able to get this funding last year was, a blessing, knowing this overall project and the intent of it and how long we've been planning on this entire water project or water master plan. And without their help, I don't think we could be able to move it along like we have. So,
okay.
Anyone else? Okay, then council, I'll bring it back to you for action regarding our consent items.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we pass our consent items A, Project 2350, Resolution 24-3, and item B, Resolution 24-05.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we adopt the resolution or the consent items as presented. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. That pretty much concludes our meeting for this evening. Once again, I appreciate everyone's patience and for our late start, but knowing that this governing body is definitely having continual meetings, even though we're not here, we have a work meeting prior to, and we had a lot of items that we needed to discuss there. So I appreciate everyone's patience with us. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much. It's been moved in second. Oh, well, all in favor, say aye. Okay, thank you again, and I hope you have a beautiful evening.